A Tiny Revolution features adults having adult conversations, which means adult language is probably going to be present. Just so you know.
A man is selling fable like he has always done before. Something scrapes on a table. Someone is settling a score. And I don't know how I found you. There must be millions here at least. But I wrap my arms around you deep in the belly of the beast.
From the Bedlam Podcast Network, this is A Tiny Revolution, celebrating our everyday victories while telling the stories and having the conversations that actually matter. I'm Kevin Garcia, and welcome back to another episode. I'm back from the hills of North Carolina from the Wild Goose Festival, which, by the way, was incredible. Thank you so much to everybody who was there in attendance, to everyone who came to my sets with the many, to my workshops, to the amazing youth that were there that I got to hang out with. Truly a really fantastic time. Thank you to Emily Joy for letting me come and read one of my poems there, which I never do anywhere except for when I'm around her. So she has this thing of inspiring bravery in people. It's really a powerful gift. But I honestly, I came back feeling so refreshed and just feeling really, really good about my process and my direction and things that were going on in my life and where I'm headed in the next season of life. So as like kind of a matter of like full disclosure, I wanted to share with you guys, I decided to defer my enrollment at Candler School of Theology this fall. It was a matter of both trying to figure out vocationally where God is bringing me, and on top of that, financially speaking, I don't think I can afford to go to school full time and also be able to pay my bill. But I am grateful that I have the option of deferment, because I feel like in a year, who knows where I'll be, who knows what I'll be able to accomplish, and who knows, maybe I'll be able to start at Candler, maybe I'll be somewhere else, who can say. I feel really good about making that decision for myself, especially after listening to the advice of people wiser than me and taking time to really pray about that. So thank you for your support in them. Thank you for your prayers. I know that I've reached out to some of you, and you guys have been nothing but wonderful. Anyways, I don't really have a whole lot of big fat announcements coming up. I had a whole lot going on this summer. Things are beginning to slow down a little bit for me, but coming up in the next few months, there's a lot going on. So when October hits, we're kind of going to go on another whirlwind. So coming up, I am really excited to announce that I'm going to be leading worship at the GCN Youth Conference. That is the first ever GCN Youth Conference they've ever put on. It is the weekend of October 13th, 14th, and 15th. So if you're listening to this and you're an LGBTQ youth out there and you're looking to connect with other LGBTQ youth, regardless of whether you're a Christian or not, I know that this would be an amazing opportunity to connect with other people and get some really cool fellowship, empowerment, all of those things. You can find out all the information at gaychristian.net. I'll be posting more information to my website as soon as it is available, but I'm very excited. And then just a little bit over a week later in Chicago, there's the Reformation Project National Conference in Chicago. And the Reformation Project National Conference is a conference that's both inspiring, informative, educational, relational. I don't know if I can get any more amazing adjectives to go with it, but I've been to every single conference since the Atlanta conference, and every single time it has proved to be just an incredible space for people to come, learn, and really start to step into the freedom that they've always been promised as children of God. So if you've never been to a Reformation Project conference, I highly recommend it. I learned yes, I'm going over some of the same information, but honestly, I'm learning something new every single time. It makes me a better advocate, and it makes me more connected with my community. So whether you are a queer Christian, you are a straight ally, you are somebody who's looking to just connect more with queer individuals from across this country and learn more about the struggle for queer inclusion in the modern day church, I definitely highly suggest you get yourself to Chicago on October 26th through the 28th. Information for that is at reformationproject.org/Chicago. Okay, now that I have talked you off, I want to share. So this conversation, I'm so excited to share. It's so delightful. I'm talking with my friend Bobby Jo Valentine. He and I met at GCN this past year, and, we're in soundcheck together, and I was just like, I want to have him on my podcast because he's just too fun, too kind. It's just you can't help but smile when you meet him, and his music is delightful as well. And that's the music you heard on the front end of this podcast, and you're going to hear intermittently throughout the interview with him. So let me just read you a little bit about him. Bobby Jo Valentine was born into a Baptist church with strict lines and sharp edges, and coming out of that culture to discover who he really is, he's now a believer of a different sort. A believer in the wild and strange, mystical nature of the world. Faith has come to mean something much deeper and wider and less cut and dry than when he first started. Bobby now finds that he has just as much to learn from the people who believe differently than he does than the ones who do. He travels the country and plays at different festivals, at different conferences that he's invited to. He's played at Wild Goose, which I just came from. He's been at the GCN National Conference a couple times. He has been at the 2016 Emerge Conference, the Kinship Festival, the annual UCC Gathering, and much, much more. Bobby Jo is a performer and a proud supporter of equal rights for all people, and he believes that we're all in this together and that the arc of the universe is long but bends toward justice. Can I get an amen? Hallelujah. In this conversation, we'll be talking about Bobby's new album, Fox Eyes Whale Heart, which is available worldwide on iTunes and on his website. And we'll just talk about a little bit about his journey, his personal life, and I just think you're going to really enjoy this. So grab yourself a cup of coffee or a beer or whatever you prefer to drink and enjoy this conversation with my friend Bobby Jo Valentine.
I don't know how it saved me, but love crept in and made a key, and it will lead you safely out of the belly of this beast.
Give me the snapshot version, some snapshots from your life that what people should know about you.
Yeah. So right now I'm a full-time touring singer-songwriter. Origins is I was born and raised Baptist. I was actually adopted 2 days after I was born. And a fun fact, Bobby Jo Valentine is actually my birth name.
Oh, it's not your stage name.
It's not my stage name, it's my birth name, and my adopted mom, my birth mom, her last name is Valentine, wanted to name me Bobby Jo, and my adopted parents took that, and they upgraded Bobby Jo to Robert Joseph. So my official name on my driver's license is their last name, and those names, Robert Joseph Parker. But when I started writing music and I heard about the story of my birth name, I was like, I really like that, and I like the idea of going back to the bones of who I am, especially because, growing up in the culture I did, it wasn't really celebrated at all. So I went through the whole Baptist thing, private school, Bible college, got to be a music director at a church for a couple of years, and eventually kind of came out in the midst of that process. Actually, I was heading to be a missionary. I was heading to be a missionary to Uganda.
Wow.
Kind of when everything came falling apart, and in the best of ways, of course, it was a glorious ego sacrifice to realize that what I thought God wanted for my life all my life actually wasn't, and it was this construct that a lot of people had created for me. So that's when I first came out, and that has been a long process, and was really fortunate to meet my partner kind of right into coming out, and it's great. We were together for almost 7 years, and we broke up for a whole of 2.5 months, and we're getting back together again. So it doesn't really count. It's one of those things where when you know. So we're just in the middle of working it through now, and that's my life story up to here, the little snapshot. And I tour the country and sing songs to anyone who will listen.
So you came out. Is your partner a person of faith? Is that too personal to ask?
No, not at all. No, he's not as we would describe. No.
Okay, well, I guess that is such a loaded word to say, because when I say person of faith, like that could mean so many different things to so many different people.
Yeah, but I know what you mean. He's not a religious guy and hasn't ever done the church scene too much and doesn't have our similar history. Yeah.
Yeah. That's got to be very interesting, though, like to not have a lot of like the Christian evangelical guilt baggage stuff going along with that going into relationships, right?
Yeah, it's actually, I'm really fortunate. And I'm also, I realize that I'm a little biased here, him being my partner and all, but he's by far like, there was a period of time where, the constructs of God and church and those kind of words, even Jesus, because they'd been used to wound me, they were not going to help with the healing.
Right.
And so I was really lucky to meet John, and he was kind of this personification, like a physical manifestation of unconditional love, of what that could look like. And he's always possessed this incredible integrity, incredible affection, and ironically, not being from our church world, he's kind of got it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
he's like,
I do.
Yeah, and this is kind of funny, the whole missionary story of people that kind of catch the spiritual and the sacred truths in the trees. John is actually that guy. Like, he gets life on a level that most people I know are still learning, and a lot of the lessons I've had to unlearn, he hasn't had to unlearn.
Yeah.
Because he didn't grow up in this, hey, this is what God is. And then, of course, you spend a lifetime being like, oh, maybe he's not that. So,
yeah. I was just talking with my friend Kenji earlier today about my own spiritual experiences I've had recently, where it's not strictly within a Christian context, where like I've had friends who are kind of like, I don't want to say like new agey spiritual kind of people. But like I've had like Holy Ghost moments, like sitting and talking with them about life, about the nature of God, about the nature of love. And, or even like I had one of my friends, she's a spiritual energy healer, which like when I first heard that, I was like, that sounds hokey as shit.
Right.
But like after like sitting down with her, she's like, let's just do an hour with me. And if it's something great, it'll be awesome. And if it's not, it won't be anything. It's no harm, no foul. And like, tell you what, like, I was weeping by the end of this session, where she was just like listening to the Spirit and saying things they already knew, but it was afraid to say out loud. I'm just like, wow, where I come from, we call that a prophetic gifting. And it looks like we just would use different language for it. And I think it's so interesting how even within our own faith, we oftentimes want to box God into what we think is, the right way to connect with God, quote unquote, right way.
Oh, absolutely. And I'd say that, everyone has faith in something. But what I think that I'm constantly learning from people like John and other people that I encounter across the nation is that they have faith. It's just a much more humble faith, right?
Oh,
and
yeah.
A lot of Christianity is the insecurity around it is based in the fact that it's thinking that you have the ultimate answer to anything, like thinking who God is and what he's about. And so it's, for example, my same instinct, spiritual energy healer, it's a weakness of our upbringing to hear that and instantly reject it.
Yeah.
Right. Because it doesn't fit within our spiritual identity. And so a lot of my travels has been like this practice and kind of just expanding, my recognition of God showing up,
Right.
God was there all along, but in the Spirit, she's going to do whatever she wants.
Yeah. Oh, I've said that before. I've said that on one podcast interview that I had. It's like,
it's real, isn't it?
I said, Holy Spirit is out of control. She just
do
it.
Yeah. Oh, she's got a fire. Oh, she's got this spirit, this attitude. Spirit for a reason. And I like that kind of how it kind of blindsides me sometimes, and it pushes up against the wall of my presuppositions and slowly has me ease them down. And when I finally let them down, God's still there. God's just bigger.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Than before that experience. God's still there. It's just bigger now.
Yeah.
And so it's been wonderful to kind of discovering that as I travel.
Yeah. It's almost like we're constantly zooming out from we're given a very, very small picture of God, like in our upbringings or just even what we're able to handle as children or as youth or as people in the first half of our life. And then, excuse me, and then as we, progress through life. And it's just, I think also, Richard Rohr talks about in Falling Upward how, like, in the two halves of life, like, it takes sometimes it takes a significant dramatic experience or hardship for people to, like, begin the unlearning process of who God isn't, or rather, like, learning who and what the more of God is. So I feel like I'm constantly, like, zooming outward from this picture. It's like, oh, there's more in this direction, and there's more in this direction, and it just keeps going. And for me, that gets so scary sometimes, because it's like,
look, sure. Oh, absolutely. It's terrifying sometimes. That's the true definition of holy fear, is when you realize you don't have the answers. It's not that you have an answer and it's scary. It's that you don't have the answer. That, in our small minds, is worse.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's a better definition of the fear of the Lord than what we were brought up with. It's not a fear of this list of things we know that we perceive to be negative about God that we should be afraid of. Instead, it's the fear of the expanse of it, the fact that we still have a lot to learn, and it's just like, I don't know, there's a sweet humility to it. I'm so glad you like Richard Rohr.
Oh, he's one of my favorites. No,
mine too.
But what you're saying right there, this is like there's some things clicking in my mind right now about that first verse in Proverbs, just like the beginning of wisdom is the fear of the Lord.
Yeah.
Oh man, let's just, like, I need to say that again. Just like, it's the fear of what we don't know about God. Like
that's the beginning of wisdom.
The intensity of the mystery and the endlessness of the wonder. That's the beginning. To just say, I really don't know anything. I do not know what I'm talking about. But
and wisdom doesn't begin without that. Like, without that, you're not a student. You're this quasi studentish teacher that's just wandering around trying to affirm things they think they already know. But if instead you're like, whoa, I don't know so much about the sacred nature of the world around me and the God behind it, then you can really be a student. Then you can really do some serious learning.
When the winds of life start hurricaning, there's barely even time to touch the ground. There is so much beauty, so much pain, but I'm learning not to separate the sounds. So I stretch my crimson cord out, reaching for a distant shore where everything's okay and nothing's aching. And it's a long way across Jordan. There are boats, I can't afford them, so I'll float to where the current takes me and sing along, let it go. It's not easy, I know, but life's a gift, then it goes, then it's gone, so sing along.
I think that, funny mentioning Richard Rohr, you know how he says when he talks about opening yourself up to the sacred nature of the world, how it takes either a great love or a great sadness?
Yes. Yeah.
I love that. And I also think that he might be just kind of democratizing a little bit when he includes great love with great sadness. I think for a lot of us, it's the great sadness.
Yeah.
That because we, as kids, have been taught this very specific construct, so that needs to be lost. It's necessary to have this tragic loss of it before we can even start constructing anything again. And so for me, that definitely came once, without going too much into the nitty-gritty details. I was finished school, finished being a music director for a couple of years, and I was heading to be this missionary to Uganda, and I was going to go work with a very specific family. And this family, when they found out I was going to come and work with them, called me and said, "Hey, we hear that you're single and you're heading to Uganda. Our daughter is also single. And wouldn't you
Wait,
know
wait,
it?
wait, wait, wait. Before
Also
you
had-
even got there, they're trying to match you up with their daughter in another country.
but it wasn't just that. It was no. She was in the States, but she was touring. She had gone to Bible college, same as I did, and she was touring the country, raising support to be a missionary to Uganda. Right. So obviously, it was written in the stars for us to be together because we were the only people heading
the book
to
of
Uganda.
love and the book of life, like same, right?
Exactly. So, so being the at the time, having been taught to read life circumstances and the Bible almost like a horoscope.
Yeah.
You're just like, like you have this life thing where you're thinking about and just read verses until it just vaguely alludes to it and apply that literally to the decision you need to make. And it was kind of that thing where I was like, well, clearly, this circumstantial evidence. And then I read Esther for such a time as this. And I'm like, well, clearly. For such a time as this, this girl has been, chosen, and I've been chosen for her. But of course, in that patriarchy, it's mainly, her chosen for me, is what we're taught. So I just kind of went along with this. And what's funny, speaking of horoscopic Bible readings, we dated for like 9 months, and she still was like on the fence about it. And then we were at some missionary meeting, and she's like, this is the one big life thing in the way. And she literally like is reading through the Bible like we used to do, like in perfect order and blah, blah, blah. And she just comes across a verse that says bride. And that was all she needed. Like,
wait, what?
Like there was nothing else in the decision other than she was reading her morning devotions one morning, and it said like bride of Christ or bride something. And she read that as a literal like horoscope prediction that therefore she was meant to marry me.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. I know people like that where like, I've had like gay friends who like used to be missionaries out on the field who like, had like met a girl and like, had like this moment where they felt like the Lord told them that they were supposed to be with this girl, but like they're gay, but like they tried to make it like, this story is not uncommon to me.
Unfortunately not. Yeah. And I'd always had kind of, I've thought about guys before and things like that, but it was one of those things, like many people, where it was like, this is a temptation, not a piece of me. And this is a little.
I don't want to make my homosexuality like my full identity, because my identity is in Christ.
Of course. Yeah. So I'm going to put this thing in a little box then and hide it. And then when I get married, then that's just magically going to fix itself.
Right.
Once the wedding night happens. So I was kind of all in for that. And I'd always been a little bit of a romantic. So I think I was really in love with the idea of love.
Always.
So, yeah. So I just dove straight into this thing, and we got engaged. We were engaged for 9 months, and she ended up telling me 9 months later that she actually hadn't loved me this whole time. That she had just, so, of course the horoscope turned out incorrect. She hadn't loved me this whole time, but she thought she could grow to love me.
Oh, that's horrible.
I know. And the marriage was in 2 months from when she told me. And this is, by the way, like, we all have our own struggle. This isn't anything against her. This is just the life we were in, the life that we were both in.
Of course.
So, how it was set up in my mind then was, I actually hadn't loved you this whole time, but the ball is back in your court. And if you cancel this wedding, that's on you. And so I struggled with it for 3 weeks and I had these pastors calling me everywhere that kind of word got out about it. And they were even telling me on the phone, like, well, you know what? Love isn't everything. And I don't even think my wife loved me when we first got married.
This is so bonkers.
I know. That was the logic they were using to try to, have me kind of continue through with this.
Get married. She doesn't love you, but get married anyways, because that's great.
Yeah, and finally, thankfully, I had all these phone conversations, and I had one friend call me who was like my best friend in the whole world, and just all he said was, dude, she doesn't love you. You can't get married. And it was just as simple as that. You know how sometimes you just need another person to really kind of tell you that you're not crazy, especially when you're in a culture where everyone is telling you you're crazy to think a certain way.
Yeah.
So,
Ooh.
yeah. So anyway, long story short, or long story long, either way, I ended up canceling the wedding, and pretty much, her parents sent out a letter to everyone saying, this girl's our daughter's fiance has canceled the wedding. Please pray for our daughter as she continues to raise support to go to the mission field.
This is like not right.
That's
shady.
And I will call that what it is. That was a blatant kind of blackballing of what the thing that I thought I was going to do in the world. And so I, had this long process of calling every pastor and apologizing, because I'd spent 9 months traveling all over the country and raising support from all these churches and stuff, and had to call all these pastors and tell them what actually happened. And they were all very, actually, to their credit, they were very kind and things like that. But after those phone calls were done, I had to deal with me. Mm-hmm. And I had to turn the focus around and be like, what does this mean for me if this thing that I thought God wanted me to do, and I was planning to spend the rest of my life in Uganda, this thing, if it didn't work out, what does that mean? And what does that mean? God, what does that mean about my life? What does that mean about everything I've been taught? And that was kind of the first crash that started my faith kind of having to experience a death before it could experience a rebirth. Mm-hmm. And so it was through that time I went through a really dark period for 6 to 9 months, and really fortunately I was able to meet my partner, and he really provided a foundation. And whether it's like a good friend you find, or someone that loves you, it doesn't matter who it is, someone that loves you in the midst of that kind of stuff, it's amazing how just one person's big heart, you can lean on that, and that can get you through.
Life is a table set for 5, and they're eating us alive in it. Life is a race we race one time, and we tend to drink and drive in it. And we'll travel any other path except the path that leads us home. We're breaking more than just our bones. Breaking more than just our bones. This time.
This past Sunday, I was actually talking with one of my casual acquaintances at my church, and she said, "Oh, Kevin, how are you doing?" I'm just like, "Well, I don't really know if I'm a Christian anymore. I don't know how this works." And she's like, "Well, what do you mean?" I'm just like, "Sometimes I doubt the divinity of Jesus, but, small potatoes, right?" and she looked at me with these big old eyes, like, well, what do you mean? I'm just like, I just don't know if I buy it some days, and today I don't. I said, tomorrow maybe I'll feel differently. But it's, I take comfort in the fact that it's kind of like what you said, one person's heart for you to lean on can be all you need. And I think that's what's really cool. It's what's really cool about really good religious community is that the days that you don't believe, or the days that you're struggling to have faith, it's your community believes for you, and your community is carrying that kind of weight with you and saying you know what, today I'll say the creed for you. Today I'll say the prayer and light the candle for you.
That's wonderful. Yeah, that's a great sentiment, man. So yeah, that was kind of my experience with losing God a little bit, and then I was really fortunate to have some people that reached out to me that had been reading and growing themselves while they were part of this Baptist world I was in, and they kind of provided me some friendship and some grace and some perspective, and I started slowly making my way back to a faith that I was comfortable with for the most part. Just like you, I have days when I'm just I don't know if this thing has too solid a definition for me. I think I feel a little bit like I'm wading in water, and I don't really know what's underneath. Like there's these depths that are unanswerable, and we tend to take what we know and think that the world is that. So we have our five senses, and we're just like, and that's the world. It's like, we wake up and we just, whatever we've walked through, unless we had our Facebook or our news or showing us evidence of something else, that would be the whole universe to us. The world would be flat if it wasn't for some sort of explorative sciences, because that's all that people experienced it with. So I feel like God is the same way with me. It's like some days I feel the presence of something greater than myself, and I can lean back on it, and I kind of feel that weight and that embrace. And then there's other days that it's just like it's not that I don't know if there's any truth. I don't know if I struggle with that, but I don't know if I feel like I still have a lot to learn about the expanse of truth and how all these different belief systems come into play to what's objectively true. And I have a feeling that all of us from all religions and all faith backgrounds are just going to be a little bit surprised when it comes to post-life consciousness. And I look forward to that. Yeah, I look forward to that mystery, I guess.
Yeah. What do you think happens after we die? I've never asked anybody this question, but I feel like you would have like at least a decent maybe. Do you have a decent idea? Have you ever had a near-death experience? Tell me everything you know.
I have a pretty decent maybe, Kevin. I do. No, I'm just kidding. I don't actually. I've never had a near-death experience, but I do really believe that there is something that happens after we die, and more than just like as a hobbyist. Like I think it's such a great thing to hope for.
Yeah.
And it seems to me that all of this energy and identity has to go somewhere. But I kind of like the idea of the idea that the vision of the self now, with all of our kind of ego and ideas and need to own and possess and have our own opinions and stuff, that idea of the self enlarges. And I like the idea that we're invited into some sense of unity, that when we die, our spirit goes somewhere where it's not like just us, but now nobody, like the invisible floating spirit. I don't know if it's going to be that, or if it's going to be this invitation into something much bigger. And our memories and our relationships and our consciousness, like I like the idea of heaven being that once we die, we're offered something better than what we can understand right now. And a lot of people are just like, well, it's like you'll eat an apple, but it'll be even more delicious. And
great.
And all the streets, well, it just like, a lot of the biblical imagery is like, and all the streets were gold. And it was like these people trying in their cultural language to say it was as good as you can imagine. And even more so. And so I kind of hold out hope that that's what's going to happen, that we're going to be all pleasantly surprised and invited to participate in something really wonderful. Have you ever witnessed someone pass away?
No, I've never. I've seen a dead body, and I have a friend who had a near-death experience, but I've never actually seen somebody die in front of me.
Can you tell that story, or is that his story to tell?
I mean, it was pretty basic, the what he described it to me. Like, he was in a really bad car accident. On his way to the hospital, his like heart stopped, and he said that when he apparently, like, he was dead for a couple minutes, but he said, like, before he woke up again, he said, like, all I felt, he's like I was just in this really bright place, and I was very much at peace, and I was very happy. I was like, whoa. And he's like, and then I woke up, and that was the whole deal.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's so crazy.
Yeah. I think that's wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's something that we can hope for. That's something I definitely hope for. But I've kind of let go after my Baptist roots. I've let go for a need of knowing, you know, or having this one thing and being like, this is my brand of tea. You know what I mean? Like this is exactly what I think happens before we die. I like to just be like, I'm going to try to stay open so that if there is something after death, and if my eyes close for the last time and my awareness reawakens somewhere else, I hope that my heart is open enough that however that is expressed to me, I can receive it.
Dang.
And that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That I don't dismiss it, or I don't reject it because it doesn't fall in line with what my idea was of a good time, so to speak.
Yeah, of a good time. Heaven. It's a good time, you guys.
It's heaven, Colin.
We should really get on the marketing team for that.
Yeah, that's right. The heaven marketing team.
You know, we haven't talked about it all in this entire conversation.
Yes. Let's talk.
You're a musician, and
yeah,
that's what you do with your life. What has been the most challenging thing about being an independent musician and someone whose music doesn't exactly fit like the broader market? It's like, it's not pop radio music, it's like heartfelt storytelling. So what's been the hardest part about just being in the world that you are musically?
Yeah, I think the hardest part for me is keeping my heart open, because once you can wrap your head around figuring out how to support yourself, especially if you're still the only one powering the engine, and that's like, I would be nothing without the fans that I have and the people that book me for shows, but I'm still the one that sends the email. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The initial contact, and sometimes that can possess you, and you can lose your creative, hopeful energy that gets you to write songs that are meaningful. Excuse me. And so I find that's a big issue with me, is I can sometimes catch myself after a particularly cold reply to your effort to put your music out into the world. It's difficult to be like, and tomorrow I'm going to wake up and really believe in that in the end, goodness is the way to go.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I think you get exposed to some of the dark arts of narcissism and possessiveness and ego, especially when you start wandering into the mainline music industry, and you can be tempted to think that that's all it is. But then if you just kind of try to keep your heart open to the next experience or concert or connection, then you meet someone like Kevin Garcia, who invites you to be a part of the podcast. But you'll meet someone else that has a big heart and integrity and wants to, kind of has the right idea of music to keep you moving forward. But I would say that's the daily struggle for me, is to remember too that, hey, this is about the song. And and when I say the song, I mean life is a song. This is about just believing that this music is tapping into something deeper and bigger than you, and being able to get out of the way and stay hopeful and bright and open. That's kind of my big challenge. When I started out, by far the biggest challenge was, can I do this full time? Like, can I quit my day job? Can I have enough to keep having food on the table and having a decent life for myself? And then that has never left me. I still struggle. I still I'm able to do it, but it still is like a workout every day where you get up, you have to flex and struggle and push. But then it becomes just remembering that life isn't about the flexing and struggling and pushing. Life is about the friendships you make along the way, the person in front of you that's having a powerful, moving experience with your songs. And it's like, if you get to do that one more time, then this is worthwhile.
Oh, my unclean hands, where have you been at least? Tell me these wounds are mine. I need a brand new plan. One where before I leave, at least I look inside. And I tried to fill my cup. With such ambition that it almost drank me, but it all comes down to love. It came and found me, and it wrapped around me. And oh, my love, carry me away. I've seen it all before. And oh, my love, carry me away. I want something more.
The best revolution is the one that starts like when you get up in the morning and decide that the world directly in front of you is going to be positively affected by who you are. And it's this little tiny revolution every single day when you decide to be the kind one, decide to be the friendly one, decide to be the sacrificial one. And I think that's kind of the big secret, and especially in this current election.
Yeah.
I know. Well, I listened to a couple podcasts before talking to you, and I listened to the one about the sweet Muslim girl that you had on.
Yeah.
And it was just wonderful, but you could hear, you were very transparent and sweet about how this was affecting you. Mm-hmm. And it's affecting you, and it's affecting a lot of people. But you could kind of feel that in your, and I think the false truth, the alternative fact that presented to us sometimes with the media, especially loving to show us all of this constantly. They don't want to just tell us once; they want to tell us during the whole 9-hour news cycle, the only negative thing that happened that day. It's kind of this insidious idea creeps in that your tiny revolutions don't matter. Mm-hmm. And like you get this feeling when you wake up in the morning, especially when you feel like the higher powers are all oppressive or against you. Yeah. You get this feeling that like, what's the point if I do anything good today? Because this guy is still president. Yeah. But I find in my life that that these little steps of goodness I try to do in my life, I really do believe they make the world a better place. And if I don't do them, I think that affects things as well. And so starting with that tiny revolution and working out, I think that's the big secret to being a lot less stressed, being a lot more happy, being a lot less anxious about the future. It's like being able to go to bed and being like, I really, the people around me kind of felt a breath of kindness that, that I otherwise wouldn't be doing if I was thinking about the news all the time.
Yeah. Self-care around not watching the news is real.
Oh my goodness. Let me tell you, I think there's so many people that just aren't, they try to stay away from all that stuff right now. And that's, of course, hard too, because you still feel like you need to be involved somehow. So striking that balance is really tricky.
Yeah. And learning how much you can handle on your own too. Because I know that I can handle a bunch. Whereas other people, they hear one thing and it's like, meltdown.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So, yeah.
Well, through though.
We will. The thing about it is the worst part about this whole thing is it's not going to kill us. So we might. Like, seriously, like, I would rather this whole thing just take me now, Lord, because then I wouldn't have to deal with this bullshit.
Oh my goodness.
But because it's not going to kill me, because this is like, maybe in my wildest nightmares it would kill me, but like, it probably won't. So therefore, in light of that, what do I need to do?
That sounds like a psalmist lament to me, my friend.
Oh, my love, carry me away, carry me away. Oh, my love, carry me away, carry me away. I want something more. They say it's safe here, but it gets so hard sometimes.
That was my conversation with a very charming and lovely Bobby Jo Valentine. You can connect with him over on his website, bobbyjovalentine.com, as well as over on facebook.com/BobbyJoV, on Twitter @BobbyJoValentine. Apparently there wasn't enough letters in there, so it's just Bobby Jo Valentine. Good for him. Good for you, Bobby. And also be sure to pick up his new album, Fox Eyes Will Heart, which is available on iTunes and on his website. I want to give a big shout out to all of my friends who support this work, especially those who are supporting me through Patreon. Patreon is a really fantastic way to help support the creatives in your life that are creating things that actually matter to you. So if you like this podcast, if you like the YouTube videos that I've been putting out recently, if you like any of the talks that I've given, if you like the blog, I would highly suggest that you become a patron. Because if you think about it, I think about it this way. You wouldn't go into a Starbucks and just get your coffee and not pay for it, right? You wouldn't buy a ticket to a show and not pay for it unless it's a free show. And granted, yeah, everything I put out in the world is technically for free, and I believe that's part of my ministry. But think of how we could impact more people if we have more support. I gotta tell you guys, ever since launching my YouTube channel, I have had a huge influx of messages and tweets and comments from people saying that they had no idea it was possible to be queer and Christian. They had no idea that a whole nother community existed out there, which goes to show you, like, when you are putting yourself out there, when you are telling people who you are, what you're doing, and what God is doing in the world, like, people start responding to that. And that's only made possible because people like you are helping support this work financially. Because again, I work in a restaurant right now, and I work part-time, and so I've got to pay the bills, and so to pay the bills I have to work X amount of hours in a restaurant. But if I have support through Patreon, I get to work less hours in a restaurant and more hours directly pouring into creating content that speaks to the LGBTQ experience. So if this work has been good for you, if it has been good for somebody that you know, if you believe that telling good stories is important, I would implore you, please become a patron through Patreon, and you can get all of that information at patreon.com/TheKevinGarcia, or just go over to my website and check it out there. Thank you so much. Special thanks to my friend Jonathan Gilpatrick for his production assistant on this podcast, for helping balance out the sound. Thank you to all my Patreon supporters, like I said. Thank you to Bobby Jo for sitting down with me. You are a treat, and I miss you, boo. Thank you to all my friends who came to see me at the Wild Goose Festival, and thank you to everybody who just listens. Honestly, like, I never dreamed in my wildest imagination that I would sit and talk into a microphone and people would actually enjoy it. And it is really a joy for me to be able to connect with so many cool, wonderful artists, activists, and people who are just ordinary folks doing revolutionary things. So remember, you are a revolutionary. Your life is wonderful, adventurous, and fantastic. And don't let anybody, not even yourself, tell you different. Again, my name is Kevin Garcia. Go ahead and connect with me over on the blog, on social media. And if you wouldn't mind, go over to the iTunes store and leave us a review. Leaving those little 5-star reviews really helps us get us further out and connect with people who would probably benefit from something like this. So that's all from me. I will see you hopefully next week, and I'll see you over on the blog and on YouTube. And I love you. Have a great week, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Oh, my love, carry me away, carry me away.
Take me now, Lord, because then I wouldn't have to deal with this bullshit.
Oh my goodness.